The Broken Promise. The rain fell in gentle sheets across Karachi that evening, creating a rhythmic backdrop to the small cafe where Samira Imran sang her heart out. At 22, her voice was already becoming a local legend, deep and soulful, capable of weaving emotion into every note. The cafe was modest, but on Thursday nights, it transformed into standing room only, with patrons spilling onto the rain-slicked sidewalk just to catch a glimpse of the woman they called Karachi's hidden gem. Among those standing in the back that night was Fareed Hassan, whose own star had begun rising in Pakistan's music industry. His debut album had just been signed to Crescent Records, the country's most prestigious label. Unlike Samira, who sang traditional ghazals with contemporary flair, Fareed blended Sufi rock with poetry, a combination that was quickly gaining him national attention. "That's the voice I want on my next album," Fareed whispered to his friend after Samira finished her set. Her last note hung in the air, a lingering echo that seemed to touch everyone in the room differently. Their first conversation lasted until dawn. They sat at a corner table long after the cafe closed, the owner too charmed by their obvious connection to ask them to leave. Samira spoke of her dreams, not of fame, but of opening a music school for girls from underprivileged neighborhoods. Fareed listened, captivated not just by her beauty, but by the passion that animated her features when she spoke of music as salvation. "Music saved me after my parents died," she told him, fingers tracing patterns in the condensation of her glass. "I want to give that gift to others." By spring, they were inseparable. Fareed brought Samira into the studio to record background vocals for his album, and industry insiders immediately began to take notice of her extraordinary talent. When they weren't recording, they wandered through Karachi's old neighborhoods, where Fareed would often pull out his notebook, scribbling lyrics inspired by their conversations. 3 of the songs on his album were written for her, though only Samira knew this. "I've never felt this way," he told her one night as they sat on the rooftop of his apartment building. "It's like you've unlocked something in me I didn't know existed." The night Fareed's album released, it shot to the top of Pakistan's music charts. Suddenly, his face was everywhere. Billboards, television, magazines. Jahanzeb Mirza, the shrewd and calculating founder of Crescent Records, began crafting Fareed's public image with meticulous care. "You're going to be bigger than anyone who's come before," Jahanzeb promised. "But that means making certain sacrifices." When Samira discovered she was pregnant 2 months later, she waited for the perfect moment to tell Fareed. She prepared his favorite dinner and bought a small pair of baby shoes, which she placed in a box on the table. But before she could share her news, Fareed arrived bursting with his own, a 6-month international tour starting in 2 weeks. "This is it, Samira," he said, eyes bright with excitement. "Everything I've been working for." The shoes remained in the box, hidden under the table. When she finally told him a week later, the light in his eyes dimmed. He paced the length of his apartment, running his hands through his hair. "This can't be happening." "Not now." The next day, Jahanzeb called Samira directly. "Fareed has a bright future ahead of him," the record executive said, his voice cold and businesslike. "A child out of wedlock would destroy everything we've built. You understand that, don't you?" 3 days later, in an interview with Pakistan's most popular entertainment magazine, Fareed publicly denied any serious relationship with Samira. "We worked together briefly in the studio," he was quoted saying. "She's talented, but we were never anything more than professional acquaintances." The magazine arrived at Samira's doorstep the morning she had planned to surprise him with a sonogram. She read the article once, twice, 3 times, each word a knife twisting deeper. When her phone rang and Fareed's name flashed on the screen, she let it go to voicemail. She packed her belongings that night, leaving behind only the small pair of baby shoes on his doorstep, a silent testimony to what could have been. By the time Fareed returned from his tour 6 months later, Samira had disappeared from Karachi completely, leaving no forwarding address, no contact information, nothing but whispered rumors of a broken heart and a voice that no longer sang. The quiet resilience Lahore welcomed Samira with indifference, a city too vast and busy to notice one more broken heart seeking refuge within its ancient walls. She found a small apartment in Anarkali Bazaar, where the constant bustle of the marketplace below her window sometimes drowned out the sound of her baby crying at night. Zara was born on a sweltering June morning, with eyes that mirrored her father's, deep and contemplative, as if she had arrived already carrying wisdom beyond her years. "She has your voice," the midwife had commented when Zara let out her first powerful cry. "Strong lungs, this one." Those early days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and determination. Samira took a job as a receptionist at Roshni Music Academy during the day, bringing Zara with her in a sling across her chest. The owner, Ustad Imtiaz Khan, an elderly tabla master who had once performed for presidents and prime ministers, took pity on the young mother and allowed her to use an empty practice room during her lunch breaks. "Music heals what medicine cannot touch," he told her, noticing how she hadn't sung a note since arriving in Lahore. "Your daughter should hear your voice, even if no one else does." It took months before Samira could bring herself to sing again, and when she did, it was only lullabies whispered into Zara's ear as the baby drifted to sleep. Her voice had changed, deepened with sorrow, yet somehow more authentic than before. Gone was the bright-eyed girl from the Karachi cafe. In her place stood a woman tempered by betrayal, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken stories. By Zara's third birthday, Samira had saved enough to enroll in evening classes at Punjab University, studying music education while working at the academy during the day. She would bring Zara to her night classes, where the little girl would sit quietly in the corner, drawing pictures while her mother learned about musical theory and pedagogical approaches. "Your daughter has remarkable focus," her professor commented once. "Most children her age can't sit still for 5 minutes, let alone 2 hours. "She's used to it," Samira replied simply, not sharing how necessity had taught her daughter patience beyond her years. Meanwhile, Farid's career continued its meteoric rise. His face appeared on television screens in restaurants where Samira ate. His voice played on radios in shops she visited. Each encounter was a fresh wound, and she learned to move through the world with eyes averted from billboard advertisements and ears selectively, deaf to the sounds that might carry his melodies. What Samira didn't know was that Farid had searched for her during those first few months. He had gone back to the cafe in Karachi, questioned mutual friends, even hired someone to find her. But Jahanzeb had intercepted these efforts, paying off those who might have known her whereabouts. "Focus on your career," the record executive insisted. "This distraction will pass," and eventually it did. Or rather, it transformed into something more manageable, a dull ache that Farid buried beneath the adoration of fans, beneath new relationships that never quite reached his heart, beneath the intoxication of success. On Zara's 5th birthday, Samira was offered a position teaching music at an all-girls school in Lahore, a prestigious role that came with a better salary and a chance to finally realize her dream of bringing music education to young women. That same week, Farid announced his engagement to Noor Jahan, the daughter of a prominent film producer, in a lavish ceremony covered by every major publication in Pakistan. "Do you know who that is?" asked one of Samira's colleagues, pointing to the magazine spread featuring Farid and his glamorous fiancée. "No," Samira lied, turning away from the image. "Should I?" As Zara grew, she began showing an uncanny musical intuition. At 7, she could replicate complex melodies after hearing them just once. By 9, she had taught herself to play the harmonium that Ustad Imtiaz had gifted her, fingers finding the notes as naturally as breathing. At school performances, parents would fall silent when she sang, many leaving with tears in their eyes, unable to explain exactly what in the child's voice had moved them so deeply. "She sings like someone who has lived many lives," Ustad Imtiaz observed when Zahra was 11, after hearing her perform a classical piece typically reserved for much older students. "There is knowledge in her voice that cannot be taught." Samira watched her daughter's talent blossom with a complex mixture of pride and apprehension. She recognized in Zahra's voice echoes of both her own melodies and, unmistakably, Farid's distinctive phrasing and timing. It was as if their musical lineage had combined and evolved into something entirely new in their daughter, something that could not remain hidden forever. On Zahra's 13th birthday, as they sat among friends at a small celebration at their apartment, someone put on the radio and Farid's newest hit filled the room. Samira moved to change the station, but Zahra stopped her. "I like this song," she said simply. "The way he bends the notes reminds me of something I do." Samira felt her heart constrict. "It's just a coincidence," she replied, though the tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. That night, after the guests had left, Zahra found her mother sitting alone on their small balcony, staring out at the city lights. "Mom, why don't you ever talk about my father?" she asked, the question hanging between them like a suspended note. Samira took a deep breath, considering her words carefully. "Because sometimes silence is kinder than truth," she finally said. "But when you're ready to hear it, I promise I'll tell you everything." Neither of them knew that everything would come sooner than expected, or that Zahra's voice, the perfect synthesis of two talented parents who had once made music and loved together, was about to captivate a nation and force long-buried truths into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. The Inherited Voice. The video was Zahra's 16th birthday gift to herself, a simple recording made in her bedroom with nothing but her harmonium and the raw power of her voice. The song she chose was an old folk melody her mother often hummed while cooking, though Zahra had reimagined it with modern inflections and a bridge of her own composition. She posted it online with little expectation, using only her first name. "Just something I've been working on," read the casual caption beneath the video. By morning, the view count had reached 10,000. By evening, it surpassed 100,000. Within 3 days, it hit 1 million, and Zahra's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. "Have you seen this?" her friend Aisha texted, sending a screenshot of a tweet from one of Pakistan's biggest music producers. "Who is this girl? Her voice is otherworldly. I need to work with her." Samira watched the commotion with growing unease. "Maybe we should take the video down," she suggested one evening. "Focus on your studies. Music will always be there later." But Zahra, now possessing the quiet determination that had seen her mother through the hardest years, shook her head. "I want this, Mom, not fame necessarily, but to be heard. Isn't that what you taught me music is for? To give voice to what matters?" When the email came from Emerald Studios, a rising competitor to Crescent Records, Zahra accepted the invitation to meet without telling her mother. Accompanied by Aisha, she visited their Lahore offices and returned home with a contract for Samira to review. "They want to produce a full album," Zahra announced, eyes bright with excitement. "They say I can finish school first, that they'll work around my schedule." Samira's hands trembled as she reviewed the document. "Do they know you're only 16? "Yes, that's why they need your signature." "Please, Mom, this is everything we've talked about, using music to reach people, to matter." What Zahra didn't say, what she barely admitted to herself, was that she also saw this as a path to answers, to the father-shaped void her mother had so carefully managed all these years. In Pakistan's close-knit music industry, she might finally discover the truth that lived in the silence between her mother's words. With reluctance born of knowledge Zahra didn't yet possess, Samira signed the contract. Within weeks, studio sessions began, and by Zahra's 17th birthday, her debut single, Inherited Echoes, was climbing national charts. The song, hauntingly beautiful with its themes of absence and identity, resonated with listeners in ways that surprised even its young creator. Music critics noted her distinctive style, reminiscent of Farid Hassan's early work, but with a vulnerability he never quite achieved, wrote one reviewer, unknowingly connecting father and daughter through there. When the invitation came for Zahra to perform on Awaz Pakistan, the same nationally televised music show that had launched Farid's career 15 years earlier, Samira knew the carefully constructed separation between their past and present was beginning to collapse. "If you do this show, he might see you," Samira warned, finally ready to broach the subject they'd both been avoiding. "Your father. He's still very much in the industry, Zara paused from tuning her harmonium. You know who he is, don't you? All this time you've known. Samira nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, is he famous? Would I recognize him? Another nod. Is it? Zara hesitated, almost afraid to give voice to the connection she'd begun suspecting months ago. Is it Farid Hassan? The look on her mother's face was answer enough. The night of the Awaz Pakistan taping, Zara made a last-minute decision that would change everything. When the host asked her full name for the introduction, instead of using Imran, her mother's surname, which she had used all her life, she said clearly, Zara Hassan. The producer, recognizing the significance of the name, tried to clarify. You mean Zara Imran, correct? That's what we have in our records. No, Zara replied with quiet certainty. My name is Zara Hassan, after my father. The whispers began immediately among the crew. Someone made a phone call. By the time Zara took the stage, the story was already spreading through Pakistan's entertainment circles like wildfire. Her performance that night was transcendent. She sang Inherited Echoes with a passion that silenced the audience, her voice filling every corner of the studio with undeniable truth. When she finished, the silence held for 3 heartbeats before the audience erupted in thunderous applause. The host, sensing a ratings goldmine, approached with calculated casualness. That was extraordinary, Zara. The Hassan name clearly carries musical talent. Are you perhaps related to Farid Hassan? Zara looked directly into the camera, knowing that somewhere, perhaps even in this very city, the man who had denied her existence might be watching. Yes, she said simply. He's my father. Though we've never met, the studio audience gasped. The host, momentarily speechless, fumbled for his next question. And, has he acknowledged you as his daughter? Zara's smile held no bitterness, only a wisdom beyond her years. He hasn't had the opportunity yet, but perhaps now he will. As the show cut to commercial, Zara's phone lit up with notifications. Among them was a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Farid. The confrontation. The interview clip spread across social media with the speed and force of a monsoon storm. Zara Hassan became the top trending topic nationwide within hours, followed closely by a Farid's daughter and the more pointed "I Denied No More." Entertainment blogs published side-by-side photos highlighting the unmistakable resemblance between father and daughter. The same expressive eyes, the distinctive curve of their smiles, the way both tilted their heads slightly when hitting high notes. In her small apartment, Samira fielded calls from journalists offering substantial sums for exclusive interviews. She declined them all, drawing the curtains and turning off her phone as television news began cycling through. Archive footage of Farid's infamous denial years ago. I never had a romantic relationship with Samira Imran. His younger self insisted in the grainy clip. These rumors are baseless and harmful to my professional reputation. Farid watched the interview from his home studio in Islamabad, a glass of whiskey trembling in his hand as his past rushed forward to meet his present with devastating momentum. His wife, Noor, stood in the doorway, her expression a complicated mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. Is it true? She asked quietly. Do you have a daughter you never told me about? Before he could answer, his phone rang. Jahanzeb Mirza, still his manager after all these years. Damage control, the older man barked without preamble. We issue a statement immediately denying any connection. Suggest the girl is using your name for publicity. We can hint at legal action if... No. Farid's voice was firm, surprising even himself. No more denials, Jahanzeb. I've carried this lie for 17 years. I won't carry it anymore. Don't be a fool, Jahanzeb hissed. Your new album releases next month. This scandal could destroy everything. Then let it be destroyed. Farid ended the call and turned to his wife, whose silent tears reflected the magnitude of his betrayal, not just of Samira and Zara, but of the truth itself. I need to make this right, he told her. The next morning, he posted a simple statement on his social media accounts. The voice you heard on Awaz Pakistan belongs to my daughter. I have no defense for my actions 17 years ago. I only ask for the chance to make amends if such a thing is possible. The public reaction was swift and merciless. Radio stations pulled his music from rotation. His upcoming concert tour saw venues canceling dates, comment sections filled with condemnation from former fans, particularly young women who had once seen him as a symbol of integrity in an industry often lacking it. Amid this professional implosion, Farid made his way to Lahore to the address Zara had reluctantly provided via text. He arrived unannounced one afternoon, standing uncertainly at the door of the modest apartment where his daughter and the woman he had once loved had built a life without him. It was Samira who answered, looking both exactly as he remembered and completely transformed. The softness of youth had given way to a dignified strength, her eyes holding 17 years of unspoken accusations. "She's not here?" Samira said before he could speak. "She's at the studio recording." "Samira, Don't!" She held up a hand. "Whatever you came to say, I've imagined it 1,000 times. Every possible version of this conversation has played in my head for years. None of them changed anything." "I was wrong," he said simply, "and I've been paying for it every day, even when I pretended not to." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Paying for it? With what? Your mansions? Your awards? Your perfect society wife? Tell me, Farid, what exactly has been the cost to you of denying your own child?" He had no answer that wouldn't sound like an excuse. Instead, he asked, "Will you tell me about her? Who she is, beyond the voice everyone is talking about?" Something in Samira softened fractionally. "She's everything you don't deserve," she said, but the venom had lessened. "She's kind, stubborn, brilliant. She plays 5 instruments. She writes poetry that makes her teachers cry. She forgives too easily, that worries me sometimes." "Like her mother," Farid said quietly. Samira's eyes flashed. "No, I haven't forgiven you, Farid. I probably never will. But this isn't about me anymore. It's about Zara and what she needs." When Zara returned home that evening, she found her father sitting in their small living room, an untouched cup of tea before him, engaged in tense conversation with her mother. Both fell silent as she entered. The moment stretched between them, 3 people connected by blood and betrayal and the music that flowed through their veins. Zara studied the man whose features she had secretly searched for in her own reflection for years. "You look like your grandmother," Farid said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "My mother. She was a singer too, though few people knew it." "I know," Zara replied. "I researched our family when I figured out who you were. Great-grandmother sang in the royal courts before partition. Grandmother gave it up to raise her children. You brought the music back to the world." She paused. "And now me." Farid nodded, unsure what to say next. "How do you compress 17 years of absence into a single conversation?" "Why did you deny me?" Zara asked, the question hanging between them like a suspended cord seeking resolution. "Because I was a coward," he answered, the truth falling from his lips with surprising ease. "Because I believed my career mattered more than my integrity. Because Jahanzeb convinced me it was the only way, and I was too weak to prove him wrong." "Is that supposed to be enough?" Samira interjected. "An admission of cowardice?" "No," Farid said, looking directly at his daughter. "It will never be enough. But it's the truth. And after 17 years of lies, I thought truth might be a place to start." Zara considered this, her expression unreadable. "I'm performing at Alhambra Arts Center this weekend," she said finally. "My first major concert since the show. I wrote a new song. It's called The Father I Never Had." Farid flinched at the title. "I want you to be there," she continued. "In the audience. Not backstage, not as some kind of reunion photo opportunity. Just there listening. Can you do that?" "Yes," he said, humility replacing the celebrity confidence he had worn like armor for so long. "Yes, I can do that." As he rose to leave, Zara added, "One more thing. I'm keeping the name, Zahra Hassan, not because you've earned the right to give it to me, but because it's part of who I am, whether you acknowledged it or not." Farid paused at the door. "Your voice," he said softly. "It's better than mine ever was." "I know," she replied without arrogance, simply stating a truth they all recognized. "It has to be. It's carrying more than just music." The Redemption Song. The line outside Alhambra Arts Center stretched around the block 3 hours before Zara's performance was scheduled to begin. What had been planned as a modest venue debut had transformed into the most anticipated cultural event of the year. Among those waiting were industry executives who had once dismissed Samira, entertainment reporters hungry for the next chapter in Pakistan's most compelling music drama, and thousands of young women who saw in Zara's story a powerful symbol of reclamation. Backstage, Zara sat before a mirror, her mother carefully braiding her hair in the intricate style they had chosen together. Neither elaborate enough for a star, nor simple enough for a student, but something in between that reflected her journey from one world to the next. "Are you nervous?" Samira asked, their eyes meeting in the reflection. "Not about performing," Zara replied. "About what comes after. Everyone's waiting for me to either publicly forgive him or destroy him. I'm not sure I want to do either." Samira's hands stilled momentarily. "What do you want?" "I want—" Zara considered the question carefully. "I want to be defined by more than his absence or his presence. I want my music to matter beyond this story. I want the freedom to figure out who Zara Hassan is when the headlines fade." As she spoke, a production assistant knocked gently on the dressing room door. "15 minutes to curtain, Ms. Hassan," he said, the name still new and strange in its formal application. Across the venue, Farid sat in the center of the 10th row, surrounded by whispers and pointed stares. His once celebrated face now carried the weight of public judgment. Next to him sat Ustad Imtiaz Khan, the tabla master who had shown kindness to Samira and Zara when they needed it most. The older musician had insisted on accompanying Farid, perhaps sensing that he needed an ally in the court of public opinion that the concert hall had become. "They will not make it easy for you," Ustad Imtiaz observed quietly. "Neither the audience nor your daughter." "I don't deserve easy," Farid replied. The lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the auditorium. When Zara walked onto the stage, poised, luminous, undeniably herself, the audience rose in a standing ovation before she had sung a single note. She waited for them to settle, then seated herself at the harmonium. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Many of you are here because you've heard about my story. But tonight is about the music, which has always been bigger than any one story, any one family, any one pain or joy." She began with Inherited Echoes, the song that had first brought her to national attention. From there, she moved through a carefully curated selection that showcased both her technical prowess and emotional depth. Between songs, she spoke little, allowing the music to communicate what words could not. Finally, as the concert neared its conclusion, she rose from the harmonium and moved to center stage. "I'd like to perform a new song," she announced. "It's called The Father I Never Had." A collective intake of breath swept through the audience. In the 10th row, Farid steeled himself for what was to come. The opening notes were unexpectedly gentle. Not the angry indictment many had anticipated, but something more complex. As Zara began to sing, the lyrics revealed themselves not as a straightforward condemnation of abandonment, but as a meditation on absence itself, how it shapes identity, how it creates spaces that must be filled with something else, how it teaches lessons never intended. "In the void where you should have stood," she sang, "I learned to build my own foundation. In the silence where your words should have been, I found my voice." The chorus rose with surprising hope. "The Father I never had taught me more than he knew how to stand alone, how to forge ahead, how to find family in unexpected places." As the final verse approached, Zara's eyes found Farid in the audience, their gazes locking across the distance that separated them, physically minimal but emotionally vast. "And if someday we meet as strangers who share the same blood," her voice soared, "I'll thank you for the music that flows through my veins, even as I mourn the arms that never held me through the night." When the last note faded, silence held the hall in its grip. Then slowly the applause began, building to a thunderous crescendo. People were weeping openly, moved not by spectacle but by truth, rendered beautiful through art. After 3 curtain calls, Zara finally left the stage, exhausted and exhilarated. In her dressing room, she found not only her mother waiting, but a distinguished older woman she had never met. Elegant, despite her advanced years. "This is Shahnaz's auntie," Samira said softly. "Farid's mother." "Your grandmother." The older woman stepped forward hesitantly. "I didn't know," she said, her voice breaking. "About you. Until the television program. Farid never told any of us." She reached out a trembling hand. "I've missed 17 years of your life. If you'll allow it, I'd like to miss no more." Zara accepted the hand, feeling the connection to a lineage she had only imagined. "I'd like that," she whispered. Later, as the venue emptied and the technical crew began dismantling the stage, Zara found Farid waiting near the stage door. He stood awkwardly, no longer the confident star, but a man humbled by consequences long deferred. "Your performance was—" He struggled to find adequate words. "It was a gift I don't deserve." "It wasn't for you," Zara said honestly. "It was for me. For all the years I wondered who I was and where I came from." Farid nodded. "I understand. I just wanted to say that whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like to know you. The real you, not just the performer everyone sees. And I'd like the chance to explain, not to justify, but to help you understand the mistake I've regretted every day since." Zara considered this, her expression thoughtful. "I can't promise forgiveness," she said finally. "But I can promise a conversation someday. Not as father and daughter, perhaps, but as 2 people with shared blood and shared gifts, trying to find a way forward." "That's more than I have any right to expect," Farid acknowledged. As they stood in the quiet of the empty theater, Samira appeared in the doorway, watching the tentative connection forming between her daughter and the man who had once broken her heart. She felt no triumph in his public downfall, no vindication in the career that now lay in ruins around him. Instead, she felt something unexpected, the quiet release of a burden she had carried for too long. "We're having dinner at my mother's house next week," Zara said suddenly. "Your mother will be there. She wants to know her granddaughter." She hesitated, then added, "You could come, if you want." Behind them, Samira gave a slight nod, not of approval exactly, but of acceptance. Some wounds might never fully heal, but perhaps they could learn to live with the scars, to incorporate them into the complex melody that was their shared story. "I'd be honored," Farid replied, understanding the magnitude of what was being offered, not redemption, which he had not earned, but possibility. As they stepped out into the Lahore night, 3 separate people connected by choices both terrible and beautiful. The future stretched before them, unwritten, uncertain, but alive with potential, like a song waiting to be composed. Zara looked up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. "In music," she said softly, "even dissonance eventually finds resolution. It just takes time and the right progression of notes. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning note in a new composition, one they would write together, measure by measure, in their own time and in their own way.